Adam, we can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself. Adam, we can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sure. Somebody muted me.
So now we can hear you.
Yeah, I unmuted myself earlier, and then somebody muted me. So.
Oh, okay.
Are we ready to start?
Yeah, we are good to go. Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry if there was a confusion there about getting started. I didn't realize I was to get started. Okay, and I'm Adam Gordon. I'm Adam Gordon. I've been in recruitment for 20 years. I spent 3 years recruiting accountants here in Scotland, where I live. After about 2 years, I realized I didn't want to talk to another accountant ever again. And so recruitment consultancy wasn't really for me. But what I did really love was the sourcing aspects, identifying all the people that you might want to hire in the future, as well as the marketing aspects, putting something out there that's going to generate a response, getting people to actually do things. And I find that very exciting. So I really do love recruitment. I'm just not much of an interviewer, and I'm not really into assessment. I'm into the bit before that, the bit about finding the people and then doing something to get them to say, yes, I want to talk to you, or yes, I'm interested in this job. So that's my area of passion. I worked in recruitment marketing for a number of years. I worked in management consulting at PwC in their human resource services practice. And then I started my own business in 2009, which was a recruitment research company, sourcing company. And I'm giving you this background because you might find it interesting, the journey and the decision making that I had in building a technology company. So in 2015, I was with one of my customers who was the world's biggest pharmaceutical company. And I said to them, how are we performing? And they said, yeah, you're doing really well. 70% of the people that you find for us are already on our database, but 30% of them are brand new. We haven't seen them before. And I'm thinking, that doesn't sound good to me. Then they told me that their internal team were finding about 70% of the people they were finding were already also on the database, and 30% of the people they were finding were brand new. They then told me that 70% of the people responding for adverts were also on the database. And I thought, hold on, how many people have you got on your candidate database? And they told me they had 10 million people across the world. So I thought, 10 million people. I mean, that's the average, that's the same size as a large European city or a medium-sized Indian city. And so I thought, we need to do something about this because we need to do something to try and nurture these candidates, because if you've already got a huge number on your database, then there's not a lot of point in constantly finding net new people. Okay, so I talked to some other large organizations and I asked them, is this the same for you? And they told me that they had 500,000, 1 million, 3 million people in their databases, And again, it was 70% of the people we were identifying were already on there. So I said, why aren't you using your applicant tracking systems or your CRMs for shortlists? And they told me it was because they were difficult to search. So I spent a bit of time looking at these technologies, and I realized actually they're easy to search in terms of finding skills. But the problem is, if you've got 500 software engineers on your database, then who do you call first? How do you know which ones are cold and which ones are hot in real time? Do you go through them 1 to 500? Do you go through them A to Z? Do you send them all one email blast with a job? And of course, that's what happens. Most organizations send them out an email blast that's advertising a job. Now, you could be lucky, and some of those people are in the market looking for jobs right now, but are they the right people? Are they the people you want? Not always. So we realized that what we needed to do was provide a nurturing service to try and help organizations to farm the databases and get better understanding of really who's cold, who's warm, and who's hire ready. Sorry, quick reminder for everybody that's here. If you don't mind going on mute, that would be great. Because everybody's working from home, so there's mobile phones going, there's kids in the background, and I completely understand it. Now, what is nurture? Nurture is engagement over time. That's the definition of nurture, engagement over time. Okay, so I'm going to talk on this session about what type of nurture content people want, what are the channels that you can use, what are the best ways to do it, what's the best frequency of contact from you to them. And this is a subject that's a bit of art and a bit of science. And over the last 5 years, we've built up a lot of expertise in this area. So in 2016, we realized we needed to create a technology because no technology existed that was going to help us to do this at scale and in a way that was making sourcing much faster. So there are, recruitment CRM products out there that allow you to send out communications to people you might want to hire in the future. But the thing is, they're systems of record. So they're designed to enable workflow and they're designed to store information. They're not designed for engagement. They're not designed for nurture. And the technical difference between that and what we're doing and where I'm suggesting organizations go is when you send a message out to 500 people, the only information you're able to get is who's responding to me. When you send a message out to 500 people and you're using kind of nurture technology and nurture techniques, it means you're going to be able to really determine from people's clicks who's cold, who's warm, and who's hire ready. So I've got those 500 software engineers on my database. If you're able to filter them according to an engagement score, because you're tracking who's clicking on my emails and my text messages and my social media messages, who is looking at my company on Glassdoor and on YouTube and on LinkedIn and on Facebook, who's looking at my landing pages, who's looking at the hiring manager's LinkedIn, who's looking at the CEO's LinkedIn, who's looking at the CEO's video with Bloomberg. When you can track and score all of this, that's where sourcing is much, much easier. So I'll move on to some real practical things now about, the way that you can go about doing some of this yourself. Okay, so what you want to know from your database is who's cold, who's warm, and who's hire ready. Now, if you break that down a little bit further from a sort of stages perspective, who's unaware of your organization? Who is aware of your organization but not really doing anything to suggest they're ready for a conversation? Who's educating themselves by coming and looking at your career site or if you're a recruitment agency, your agency website? Who's more deeply considering, because that's the people who are looking at job descriptions and things like that, and then who's applied, been hired, and not been hired. If you can determine from your database who is where on this wheel, then you're going to save a huge amount of time. 50% of your time spent sourcing, you don't have to do it. You spend less time on social media. You spend less time dealing with ad response. You spend less time on CV databases. Humans should be spending their time with these candidates in the consideration phase. Maybe those candidates in the education phase, but not with those candidates in the awareness phase. Here's an example. I'm looking for a marketing exec based in Pune. I go on to LinkedIn and I look for marketing execs in the software industry in Pune. I find that there are 14,000 of them. I then start filtering by job titles. I'm looking for somebody with 3 to 5 years experience. Okay, and I get that down to 400 people. Of those 400 people, some of those are going to be in the market looking for a job today. Some are not, but they might be interested. Some are not going to be doing anything. So what we really need to understand is, yep, who's at which phase, and that's going to help us get to shortlist much, much faster. What you really want to know is, who do I call first? If I can see that John has in the last week opened an email, whereas Jane opened an email, clicked a link, looked at your landing page, looked to your company on Glassdoor and YouTube and the hiring manager's LinkedIn profile and the job description. If you've got John and Jane and that's it, you call John and Jane. But if you've got John and Jane and 200 others of the same types of people, you filter them based on their activity and you get to the 10 Janes and you can ignore the 190 Johns for now because they're not ready for a conversation. As humans, typically, we want to be spending our valuable time, because we're the most expensive thing in recruitment, is our human time. So we want to be spending our valuable time doing the thing that we really enjoy most, and that is talking to engaged candidates, talking to engaged hiring managers, and matching them. That's what we want to really spend. If we could spend all of our day doing that and less of our day cold contacting people, we can be much more effective. From the companies that I know that have taken this approach, by the end of year one of taking this kind of approach, they've been hiring 50% more people per recruiter, 50% more hires per recruiter. If you're an agency, that's a lot more money. It's a much more profitable model. If you're an in-house talent acquisition team, you're much more effective. You're going to be getting a bonus. Now, in terms of it, let's talk about a tech stack. So what we really want to do is we want to know, we want to think about the different kinds of technologies and where they're going to be useful for us. So of course, every organization has an applicant tracking system or a CRM or some kind of system of record. Okay, what you want is to understand what are the different attraction channels that are going to bring in all the people into your talent pipeline. So the concept of talent nurture and a talent pipeline are completely linked. In order to create a talent pipeline, you need to nurture the people. That's how we know who's cold, who's warm, and who's hire ready. Think about it in the context of a sales pipeline. A lot of us have worked in recruitment, have worked in some kind of a sales job. If somebody says to us, so what's your sales pipeline? You're going to know, well, here's 10 companies that I've been trying to make contact with. They're not really going to be buying this month. Here are 4 companies where I've got jobs on, but they've just come on. So I'm not going to be making, placements with those at this point. And then here's another 3 where I've got interviews happening right now. I think I'm going to fill 2 out of the 3 of these jobs. And therefore my sales pipeline is this amount of money. And so you can go from your different activity right through to this is the amount of money that's going to come out the other side. Let's think about a talent pipeline in the same way. It's the same funnel shape, pipeline shape. So who are the candidates that are cold? Who are the candidates that are warm? Who are the candidates that are hire ready? That's how we consider it. And in terms of this image in front of you, you could think about this almost like a funnel shape as well. So those candidates that are into the applicant tracking system or the CRM, those that are getting managed against vacancies, that's the very bottom of the funnel. Up at the top of the funnel, here's all the different kind of things that you could do to bring candidates in. So you start with your existing database, of course. Now, most of you will have an existing database. A lot of the candidates on that database, they'll be cold right now. So you need to bring them into the top of a pipeline and then start to nurture them. Your careers site or your agency website, you're going to have content on there. You should, on every single page, you should be giving potential candidates the opportunity to fill in a form and come and join your talent network or your talent community or your talent pipeline or whatever you want to describe it to them. If you're going to do that and you're going to get them to fill in that form to come into the top of the funnel, you're going to have to give them some, reward for doing that. The reward for doing that could be that they'll get considered for jobs, or the reward for that could be that they're going to get some interesting content from you, useful content that's going to help them with their careers. I'll come on to content later because this is one of the most important aspects of talent nurture. Employee referral program. If you have an employee referral program, then great. That can bring in people at the top of your funnel. If you're a recruitment agency, you need a referral program. You might not be running it. I very rarely hear of staffing companies running referral programs. You should be turning all of your candidates into a source of referrals. They will probably know you've got 10,000 candidates on your database. You've got 10 new jobs this week. Send them out a weekly email newsletter with, here's the 10 new jobs this week. Who do you know? If you refer as somebody, you'll get, some money or something, whatever it might be. Job boards, obviously, they're a good part of the top of your funnel talent pipeline. Direct sourcing is a method. So going and identifying all the people on Facebook and on Instagram and on LinkedIn and places like that. Social media in terms of sharing content. So sharing content through Twitter, through LinkedIn, through Instagram. I post on Twitter 10 ways to be a better solutions architect in Chennai. Solutions architects who are looking at that content, they might click on that link. They click on that link, bring them through to a landing page. At that landing page, they fill in some details, and that then takes them through into the talent pipeline. So it's all about, at the top of the funnel, this is all about data capture. It's all about giving people the option to sign up, but giving them some kind of a reward for signing up. You, of course, have all sorts of sourcing tools, hire tool, and things like that. You might be doing programmatic advertising, or you might be doing some kind of, internet advertising. And then in terms of like staffing agencies, if you're an in-house team, your staffing agency candidates could come into your pipeline as well. You just tag them against that particular recruitment agency so that if you hire them in the first 12 months or whatever it is, then you pay them that fee. Now, the next thing is, how do we separate who should we be nurturing and who should we not be nurturing? Okay, in terms of this example here, on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a general talent pool for irregular hires. So most companies would hire a lawyer once every 12 months, a procurement manager once every 6 months. They would hire marketing people regularly, retail managers regularly, software engineers regularly, salespeople regularly. These are the areas that you might be able to pipeline. And of course, the pipelinable roles vary from company to company. In most companies, technology is an area that you can pipeline. So in terms of this company, it's a healthcare company. They have a pipeline for lab managers, project managers, salespeople, and scientists. Okay, these people are getting a pretty valuable and regular nurture experience. They're getting communication maybe once every 10 days by email or text message. And that communication that each person gets should vary according to where they are in the pipeline. On the right-hand side, this is a general talent pool. As I mentioned, this is the irregular hires. They might get a newsletter once a month about what's going on in your company, something like that. You don't need to put as much effort into continuing to nurture those people. But for these evergreen areas that you're always hiring for, nurture is the new sourcing. Now, here's a sort of sample content map. This is the way that we think about candidates in terms of who's cold, who's warm, and who's hire ready. Okay, so we think about it broken up in terms of what are the channels, what are the formats, what are the different content suggestions. People who are cold do not care about your job descriptions. They'll click unsubscribe if you send them that. According to LinkedIn, 80% of people are not in the market looking for a job. Of course, with COVID-19, it might be that 80% is higher. It might be is lower. Sorry, it might be like 70% or 60%. Who are actually it might be a lot more people are looking for opportunities at this current point. But actually, with all the chaos happening just now, that's an even more important time, I think, to be building talent pipelines so that you can create some clarity among the chaos, and so that you've got places for candidates to log in and come into your candidate pipeline so that you can then do that nurture. Now, those who are cold, under normal circumstances, LinkedIn says that's 80% of people. What do they want? They don't want your job descriptions. They don't care about your employer brand. They want industry insights. They want talent development or skills. They want career advice. And we know that they want that because from my data, for the last 3 years of running a talent nurture business, we can see what candidates click on and what they don't click on. And those who are cold, they are still going to be engaged by your organization by if you're giving them that type of content, useful, relevant content. For those who are warm, they're interested in your employer branding. They're interested in what's it really like to work there. They're interested in the career opportunities. And if you're an agency, then make use of your customers' employer brands and your customers' employee stories and things like that. For those who are hire ready, they want to know, what's the salary? What's the working hours? How do I get to the office? They want all those real details. What's the job description? So they want all those kinds of details. So really think about, actually, if I'm going to nurture candidates, I need to know who's cold, who's warm, and who's hire ready. And I need to create content that's appropriate for each group. Because if I send the same thing to everybody, then for a lot of them, it's not going to be relevant at all. Okay. I'll come back to this because this is a really important point and you might have some questions about this. Let's talk about the way that you score candidates' interactions with your content. So down at the bottom, you can see this is channels and formats. So we think about this in terms of like, what are the most meaningful interactions? If somebody opens an email, that might just score 1 point. If they look at a video, they're deeper into the content. They are doing something that is more meaningful, and it suggests that they're more likely to be interested in your organization. Down the left-hand side, this is subjects. So again, if somebody's looking at something like industry news or skills, that's going to score quite low. If they're looking at skills for sales managers, it's going to score low. If they're doing a job search for sales manager jobs, it's going to score higher. They look at the job description for a sales manager job, it's going to score higher again. So this is the type of balanced scorecard that I would recommend. Now, in terms of tracking and scoring all of this, candidate behavior, who's clicking on all of this? What are they doing? What kind of a journey can we be serving them? How can we be scoring all of this in this kind of way so that we've got hot leads coming in as candidates do meaningful activities? There's lots of different marketing automation technologies that you could use. So, I mean, within recruitment, of course, there is Candidate ID, but in terms of outside of recruitment, you could potentially use products like HubSpot or Marketo or Sales Fusion, Infusionsoft, Eloqua, Pardot, Marketo. So, your marketing colleagues may already have access to technology that does this same kind of thing. So this is not a sales pitch for Candidate ID because there are other technologies outside of recruitment that could do this same kind of thing. So let me talk through a couple of example workflows. So this is quite a simple workflow. As I said, we think about candidates in terms of who's cold, who's warm, who's hire ready. So in this example, you send out an email to all the candidates, and then if the email is opened, then in this case, just because it's an email, that's it. It's not a meaningful thing. It scores 1 point. Okay. But then the candidate's gone from cold to warm. They're moved into the warm segment. So you should be able to filter your candidates according to an engagement score, but you should also be able to filter them according to who's cold, who's warm, and who's higher ready. Okay. So that's quite a simple workflow. Recruiters can do this. Sourcers can definitely do this. Incidentally, I stood on stage at an event in Amsterdam 2 years ago in front of 300 sourcers. And I said to them, finding people is no longer the challenge. You need to change your jobs. You need to become nurture marketers, and you need to become data analysts. And to my surprise, they mostly agreed with me. And they were open to that. And the other thing is the sourcing skill set and the sourcing mindset is one that is really, really good for nurture marketing, nurturing your candidates. And the reason for that is because sources are creative. And of course, the concept of distributing content to people to determine automatically who's cold, warm, and higher ready, that's a creative process. There's some science in this and there's some art in this. The other reason is because sourcers try something, and if it doesn't work, they don't give up. They try a different thing. They try a different thing. They try 10 different ways of doing things before they work out that actually there needs to be a different way. So this is the same in nurture marketing. The first week, the first 5 weeks, you might be sending things out that nobody's really interacting with. But after 5 weeks, you're going to know what hasn't worked, and you're going to start to see what really is working. So sourcers have the right skill set and the right mindset. Sourcers are also very, very technology literate. So putting workflows together and putting 2 bits of technology together to come up with an answer, to unveil an answer, that's something that sourcers are very good at. So this workflow here, for a 360-degree recruiter, this might be a little bit, okay, I'm not sure how I would get this more sophisticated. For a sourcer, this one's probably quite easy. Let's take a look at something that's a little bit more sophisticated. So in terms of this example, the candidates all get an email, and then if the email is not opened 2 days later, the candidates get a text message. Okay. Now, text message in Europe will drive 23% more interactions with that content. In the USA, it's about 20%. I don't know what it is in India, but in Europe, 23% more interactions. In the USA, 20% more interactions. It might be that yours will be high as well. So if you can put an automatic workflow in place, a nurture workflow, because some people don't like email, but they do like text message. So this is a really important point. Everybody's got different preferences for how they want to receive communication, for the channels that they want. Some people like email. Some people like WhatsApp. Some people like text message. In terms of the actual content formats, some people like white papers. Some people like playbooks. Some people like infographics. Some people like videos. The trend is towards video, of course. But anyway, what you want to do is you want to put in workflows which try different things. So if the email is not opened 48 hours later, automatically text message is triggered. Okay. And then down from here, if the candidate visits the job description from either the email or the text message, the recruiter gets an alert or the sourcer gets an alert to tell them that that candidate has done that activity. Here's another. No, we've actually covered that one. Okay, here's another workflow. You may need to, if you're using an applicant tracking system, you may need to try and connect everything. So what you want is from your nurture system, from your content marketing system, what you want is either through some webhooks or through an API connection, you want to know if the candidate applies for a job, then you want that needs to be updated in the applicant tracking system, like automatically, that they get added to the vacancy and the recruiter gets an alert. At which point they would be suppressed within the nurture system, until they've either been hired, in which case they might go into a pipeline for employee communication. If they've not been hired, but they would be maybe next time, then they go back into the pipeline. If they've not been hired and the hiring manager says, I never want to see that person again, then they could be completely suppressed within the nurture system so that they don't get any more communication. Let's talk about internal talent pipelines, because one of the things that's changing right now around COVID-19 is a lot of organizations I know are being asked, the talent acquisition teams, the recruitment teams, are being asked to look at the internal talent pipeline. Who's been furloughed that we want to be bringing back? Who else is there within our internal talent pipeline that we should be considering for different jobs? And so, you know, the talent acquisition skill set works really well for this. So if you think about the concept of an external pipeline and an internal pipeline, the internal pipeline could be just as important and valid. You also want to be able to, when the hiring manager, if you're an agency, this doesn't really work. But if you're an internal in the team, then the hiring manager says to you, hey, look, we need to hire some more product managers, and I want to hire people from Hero. You might want to be able to go, okay, let's take a look at our internal talent pipeline, and I can see we've got 20 great people here in the business. We've got 20 great people here inside the business. We want to look at those first. So you could push back on the hiring manager, because it's easier to hire at a junior level than it is at a more senior level. So if you can move people up within the organization and you can create succession for people that you brought in at a junior level and move them up, then actually it makes your job easier, because hiring at the more junior level normally is a bit more easy. As I mentioned, we think about the furloughed worker talent pipelines. And if you've got candidates who are furloughed right now, then my recommendation would be that you're nurturing those people. You're keeping in contact with them, because if you're not, then IBM is. And I say IBM specifically because their chief human resources officer was quoted last week as saying, just now is a great time to go and poach the very best talent from the competition. So I think you want to be trying to keep in contact with those people that you have furloughed right now. In terms of the benefits of the talent pipeline, the sort of nurture marketing approach, the first benefit is daily hot candidate leads straight into your recruiters' inboxes. As candidates are interacting with your content, then you are automatically tracking what they're doing. And if they do something meaningful, such as they look at 5 pages of your website, but then they don't apply, you want that lead coming straight into you as a recruiter or a sourcer. At the same time, you want to know which candidates are looking at my job descriptions but not applying yet. Those people who apply, to be honest, you'll get to them anyway, but those people who look at job descriptions but don't apply, who are they? From my research, from my data, 5 out of 6 candidates who look at a job description but do not apply, those people have not applied because they didn't know how to get to the office, they didn't know how much they would get paid, they didn't know what the career progression is within your organization, they didn't know if they could work from home a day a week, they didn't know if they could take their dog to the office. You know, there's lots and lots of different questions that people have, which is reasons why they haven't actually applied. So you want those hot leads for who's interacting with your content. And to do that, the nurture approach is the right way to do it. A considerable reduction in sourcing time. As I mentioned earlier, from my research, you can generate, you can generate 50% reduction in time to shortlist by month 3 from taking the candidate nurture approach to recruiting. The other data that I have is by the end of the first year, you can get to 50% more hires per recruiter. So, a huge uplift in productivity. If you're in an agency, you're going to make a lot more money for yourself and for the business. If you're in an in-house team, you're going to be much more productive. You're going to get promoted. The third one is an optimum personalized candidate experience. And now the benefit to you of the optimum personalized candidate experience is you're going to have more good people coming through your talent pipeline. So if you're providing great content, a great experience to people, then they're going to feel goodwill towards your organization. But then they're going to turn their heads and they're going to go, actually, is this a company I should think about working with? So you're going to have more good candidates coming through. Now, when I talk about an optimum personalized candidate experience, that doesn't mean that the salutation is, dear John or dear Jane. That means that they're getting the content in the channels they prefer, in the content formats they prefer, on the days of the week and the times of the day they prefer, and in the subjects that they're interested in. So the system you use can determine who's cold, who's warm, who's hire ready. That then dictates this is the kind of content they should get. And then you put in workflows which say, right, if the person doesn't open an email, 2 days later, they get a text message. If they click on the link from that text message, then they keep getting content by text message. If they don't open messages in the morning, but they do open messages in the afternoon, then they automatically will continue to get content in the afternoon. So there's lots and lots of different workflows that sourcers can put into a content marketing and nurture marketing program if they're using the kind of pipeline technology in order to create that optimum personalized candidate experience. And it's not just about being nice to people, and it's not just about the fluffy stuff around your employer brand. It's about the hard data. This is all about data. How many people are coming through the funnel? How many are cold? How many are warm? How many are hire ready? I do agree with people when they say we need recruitment to be a human experience. Yeah, we do. But as sourcers, we don't have time to be human to everybody. So if we can get technology to mimic a human experience, then that's what we really want. And yes, we need to treat, we shouldn't think about candidates as, people as candidates. We should think about them as people. I appreciate that. I understand that. However, at the same time, I've got to tell the truth here. I think about their interactions as data. I think about what they're doing as data. I think about their, where they are in the funnel as bits of data. And my job is to get everyone from cold into warm, everyone from warm into hire ready at the appropriate point. Much enhanced recruitment marketing performance because you can really see what's working, what types of tweets are working, what Instagram stories work, what LinkedIn updates work, what different ways of writing my job adverts work. Do A/B testing, 2 different versions of job adverts, send it out to half the database. You've got a database of 200 project managers, send one advert to 100 of them, the other advert to another 100 of them, completely random. Whichever one is getting the best applications, that's probably the job description type, the style, which works best. I've come to the end of the formal part of this presentation, and I'm really happy to take any questions. So I've got to be really honest. I'm not 100% sure how I determine how to do this. So I've just stopped sharing my screen, and I wonder, Ashfaq, if you're able to help me to understand if there's any questions, and yeah, if I can answer anything anybody's got.
Yes, yes. Guys, if you have any questions, maybe you can unmute yourself and then ask a question to Adam.
Or type it into the chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there is a question on here from Sudhir, which is, Adam, I would appreciate if you can list out the automation tools So what you want is a marketing automation tool to do this. There's only really one in recruitment, and that's called Candidate ID. But there's quite a lot in mainstream marketing, and you've got lots of different products that maybe your marketing colleagues might already have access to. So I'm putting some in the chat here. Examples would be HubSpot, Marketo, Infusionsoft. There's also Sales Fusion. The other big one would be if your company uses Salesforce, then Salesforce owns a product called Pardot. Eloqua is another one, which is pretty heavy duty. So if you work for a big multinational corporation, Eloqua might be one that you've got within your company's marketing stack. The challenge would be, if you're going to use a mainstream marketing technology, is that some of these tools will be heavily protected by your marketing colleagues, and so you might need to ask their permission to use it. You might need to ask for their support to use it, and you might get you might get charged to use it. Okay, I've got another question, which is from Viral. So how to convince candidates who have refused to work with you after an initial bad experience? Well, this is great, because the answer to that is almost everybody. Now, I don't know about any of your individual organizations, but most people, unless they got the job, most people in recruitment have had a bad experience, because we as recruiters have not been great at giving good feedback. Hiring managers have not been great at giving us good feedback either. So there will be a lot of people on your database right now who they might not be interested in, hearing from you again. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that you're changing their opinion of you. And one way of doing that is by being useful and relevant. At scale, it's difficult to do that individually on a one-to-one basis. But if you are developing a relationship and generating goodwill by distributing useful content to those people, then you can hopefully change their minds about would they be interested in talking to you again in the future. That's a great question, and yeah, I mean, we could talk about for an hour about how to turn somebody from being a hater through to somebody that's going to be a interested candidate, and somebody who's potentially going to actually recommend your organization. Okay, I've got another question here from Kshitij. Sorry, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but hopefully I'm close. How we could tap the passive candidate who are in the cold stage, where to look for them if they're not present on social media, and especially leadership level candidates. Okay, in terms of leadership level candidates, I have a tactic which I think works really well, and I call it exec connections. Exec connections is all about getting your senior hiring managers directly connected online with potential candidates. You could do that through LinkedIn, but of course, as you've said, if they're not on social media, you need to identify them in other ways. And what you might do is you might get your CEO to host a dinner, for example, and get in a celebrity from your industry. If you're in the engineering world, get some sort of celebrity engineer, maybe the person that runs the engineering faculty at the celebrated local university, or a journalist from the engineering world, or somebody who's just built something amazing that people are going to want to talk about. In terms of then how you go about sort of tracking and scoring what they do, I know organizations that are creating pipelines of engaged candidates at the leadership level. So it's not going to be thousands and thousands of candidates, but if you're mapping like for the VP level and you've got 10 current VPs in your company, then you probably want to have a bench of 20, 30 VPs for each of those roles. So it's going to be only 200 or 300, potential candidates. So it's not large numbers. And if you can dedicate a bit of time towards that, then you can do a bit more of a one-to-one sort of red carpet treatment for those people. And that's why I'm saying things like dinners and things like that. That's it. The culture in the UK would be that would work quite well. What I would call red carpet treatment. So let's see. Harish has asked, what difference you've seen before candidate ID and after candidate ID in any one particular industry or a business? Well, what I can tell you is Specsavers, and I'm not going to talk much about candidate ID. That's not what this session's about. But I'm going to talk about in terms of the concept of marketing automation, nurture marketing, building like pipelines and nurturing those pipelines. Specsavers is one of the world's biggest optometry retailers. They're present in 12 or 14 countries across the world. And they had a database of, across those 12 or 14 countries, they had a database of about 50,000 candidates. There's not very many optometrists in the world, qualified optometrists. Most of those people were happy in their jobs. They weren't really interested in making a move. And they had a team of people that were constantly cold calling people at their work, in between patients, in between seeing patients, to ask them if they'd be interested in a job move. So they were getting responses back, which were like, "Don't you call? Why are you calling me at work? Don't do this." Hanging up the phone. They were getting lists from the professional bodies for optometrists and opticians. They could actually get the list of, here are all in Denmark, here are all the optometrists in the country. Okay. And so when the sourcing manager said to the head of recruitment, okay, the good news is we've been through all of the candidates, and the bad news is we've been through all of the candidates. What do we do now? That's when the head of recruitment realized picking up the phone to people and then going through all of the candidates and then doing it all again and doing it all again and doing it all again is a bad way of nurturing. They realized that they needed to more automate this and be smarter about how they do this. And so in that, I've quoted this a couple of times. Specsavers were able to get to shortlist 50% faster by month 3. They were able to get to 50% more hires per recruiter by month 13. Big uplift in productivity. Karthik said, as you said, the active candidates will directly fall into the recruiter's inbox. Is it from all kinds of job portals, or will it be restricted to only one? No, I mean, I'm talking about all kinds of job portals. Anybody who's going to apply for the job, you don't need alerts coming in to tell you that Karthik, I don't need an alert to tell me that Karthik and Fernando are going to apply or have applied, because I can see that they've applied, on my applicant tracking system. What I want to know is, who are the 5 people, for every Karthik who applied, who are the 5 Fernandos who didn't apply? I think you're Rachel, actually. Rachel Fernando. Okay. Who are the 5 Rachels who did not apply? That's who I want to, really understand a lot more about, because I can then go and make contact with all those individuals. So thanks for that question. So question from Rachel is, how do you handle the challenges while hiring for niche roles? For example, cloud infrastructure executive, women candidates in Europe and North America. Okay. Different kind. So first of all, if you are recruiting for niche roles, and when I think about niche roles, I'm thinking like roles that you don't hire for very often, the standard sourcing approach that we're all used to, which is we take a look at the job description, we work out all the different job titles and industries and companies that these people are going to be working at just now. We look for the synonyms, and then we go off and we run our search on Google. We do our Boolean search, we do our X-ray search, we go deep inside LinkedIn and other places. That's the right thing to do for that. If you're hiring regularly, you create a pipeline just in the way I've outlined. So as an example, if you're hiring, one company I know, it was actually part of Capita, they determined if we're hiring 10 or more of the same types of people, then the effort to build the pipelines is going to be really worthwhile in terms of hiring more good people. You're talking about women candidates here. A lot of my customers use the talent nurture approach to roll out the red carpet to female candidates because they want more females on their shortlist. So, creating pipelines of female candidates is something that a lot of multinational organizations are doing. Srini's asked, what are the top 3 things which organizations need to do to make sure that they give the great candidate experience? I am not involved from the application point onwards. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not that interested in the kind of recruitment bit. I'm interested in the attraction bit and the talent sourcing bit and the nurture marketing bit. So I can talk about candidate experience right up until the point where of application. From application onwards, that's somebody else's thing. But right up until then, personalization. For the great candidate experience, it's personalization. That's the number one thing. Creating workflows whereby candidates, based on their behavior, whatever they clicked on last, that determines what they get next. So that's my number one tip. However, my number 2 tip would be in the areas where there are niche skills, niche areas of technology, female engineers, females in leadership, things like that. My advice would be absolutely try and do things in person. If you can do dinners, things like that, absolutely try and do that. If you can schedule a coffee meeting between the hiring manager and somebody that they might hire, and you can position it, don't position it as recruitment at all. Position it to the candidate as, hey, look, the hiring manager of this business I work in would love to have just a conversation about your career aspirations and what it is you want to achieve. That's a really, really good use of time, I think. Of course, what I'm talking about is in-person meetings. So it's going to be difficult to do that now while a lot of people are working from home. But get them on Zoom, get them on Teams, get one-to-one conversations happening between hiring managers and the candidates. Why already have build our database through LinkedIn? Any out of the box idea? Okay, I'm not quite sure what that question means, but I'm going to answer a different version of what I think that question means. So the question might be around, look, I've built my database on LinkedIn already. Why do I want to build it somewhere else? If you do the nurture marketing approach, it means you're no longer reliant on LinkedIn or any other channels. To be a sustainable sourcing function or talent marketing function or recruitment function, you want your own database to be a farm. You want it to be a vibrant, ecosystem that's constantly generating data about candidates. LinkedIn offers a great service, which is about which candidates have been looking at your content on LinkedIn. But actually, what you really want to know is which candidates have been looking at your content on LinkedIn and Glassdoor and YouTube and the hiring managers, social media accounts and other places as well. So, building your own pipeline is absolutely the right sort of thing. That question we have answered. Got a few more here. One more from Sudhir. What would the best practices to engage according to global hiring trends? Will that be emails, newsletters, texts, infographics? This is all about channels and formats. As I said earlier, ideally what you really want is personalization. You want to put in workflows whereby each person's experience is not determined by what you think it should be. It's based on what they clicked last. So whatever they clicked last determines what they get next. However, one thing I can tell you is email across every country that my customers work, including India, email is the best performing content channel. And I can tell you that, again, across every country, this is including India, including China as well, video is the best performing content format. Email, video. If you can't do the automated personalization, then what I would say at this point, I would say email, video. Question from Mugda. As you said, with this nurturing approach, it'll take around 3 months to enhance the performance, but how we can step in for some urgent requirements where we needed candidates yesterday. Email blast them, just do it. You've got 500 software engineers on your database, send them all an email and just put in place one piece of automation. Put in place a bit.ly link to those emails, and it'll tell you which people opened the job description. That's your call list. It's not an easy fix, but it's something that will work. It's a reasonably quick fix, and it's something that will get you better data than just sending out the message to the 500 and seeing who's responding. What are the different medias to tap LGBTQ category candidates for different role? I've got to be honest, I just don't know. I suspect that asking Dean, I know Dean's a tools guy. I'm not sure if he's a media guy as well. So I just can't tell you. I'm sorry, that's not my skill set. I don't know which are the different medias for different types of people. And we'll just take one last one because I'm conscious we're on the hour. So Farhan has asked how to nurture candidates through email marketing, how to make it through spam folders and attract candidates that way. Okay, really, really big subject. This is also a highly technical subject. You need to do what we call IP warming. You need to do IP warming, and what that means is do not put 5,000 candidates and then send them all an email. Do it 100 on day 1, 300 on day 5, day 2, 1,000 on day 3, 5,000 on day 4. Build it up like that, because what you need is you need Gmail, you need Outlook, and you need other email servers to start to get used to your email server and your email account. So that's the first thing. The second thing is don't include loads of links in your emails. The third thing is don't include loads of images in your emails. Keep them quite simple. I genuinely recommend a subject headline which acts as a sentence to get them to open it. The best performing email campaign I've seen recently simply said in the subject heading, ABC, comma, Ashfaq, question mark. That was it. So the candidates are going, ABC to me. I opened the email and then it was, hi Ashfaq, one sentence, why you want us to speak. A, yes, send me a calendar invite for next week. B, yes, but give me a month because I'm dealing with other things. C, not just now, maybe after the summer, right? Really, really simple, but then a call to action. Your email has to have a good call to action. And so there's a few tips. That's a different webinar. That's a big, big subject. It's quite technical around servers and things like that to avoid spam filters, but certainly not very many links, not very many images. Try and just have like short emails, text only, 100 on day 1, 300 on day 2, 1,000 on day 3. Build it up like that. I hope that's been interesting. I've answered, I think, quite a lot of questions there. I'm sorry that we took a few minutes at the beginning to get going. Ashfaq, do you have anything else that you want to say just now, or?
All good, Adam. Thanks for your time. Thanks for giving time. Thanks for enlightening recruiters here about talent nurturing and the importance of branding and building pipelines. Right. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time.
Okay. Thanks so much for having me. All the best, everybody. Feel free to connect online, connect on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and if you've got any one-to-one questions, just send them to me.
Thank you, Adam. unknown participant is now exiting.